Now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator and guest for today's panel, Ted Milden. Ted has served on the NAIOP board for over 7 years, and he's going to be rotating off this year. And we owe him a great deal, and I'm very, very happy that he volunteered his time with us for those 7 years and also to moderate today. Ted is the VP of Office Leasing. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Thanks, Mo. It sounds like Ted's had a bit of an unforeseen circumstance, and looks like we've got him joining us from a video link with our tech guys. So I'm sorry, but we'll try this a different way. I think we're all used to this over the pandemic and how this works. So if we can figure out that video link. Hi, Ted. Sorry, you're on mute.
Hey, everyone. Good to see you all. Sorry I couldn't be there today. Something came up and I just had to stay at home. But I think this should be just fine. I think we'll go okay here. Let me just share my screen before we get into this. Devin, don't leave. Just give me a little bit to prove myself. See how this goes. So let me just share my screen here. And there we are. Actually, whoops, wrong screen. Okay. So let's just start off with a quick market overview. Sorry, just give me a moment. I gotta go grab that.
That's why they have a dedicated small business advice hub on their website to provide tips and insights on business banking to entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much, everybody. Still here? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, people.
This one. Oh. Is this one? Good morning, everyone. Good to see everybody. Did I get anybody with that? Show of hands. Okay. Who would have been disappointed if this was over Zoom? Right, me. Yeah, I think we all would have been. A little bit of a poke at remote work. But let me just get to my notes here. So, amazingly, we did all that. We came up with that without a comedy speechwriter, which some of our elected officials have in the Vancouver area. I did want to quickly talk about normalizing that behavior, if I am going to be on a soapbox for a little bit. We actually had our development team flying in from Toronto talking about one of the projects in the market, and as they were boarding the plane, they got a note from the city official they were dealing with saying, switching to remote can't accommodate in person today. And they were boarding a plane in Toronto to come here, which I think we would all in this room think is unacceptable. Where's my clicker? There it is. I know, Bryce, I heard you were looking behind the stage trying to figure out if this is legit, and I was actually not showing up. So speaking of some other things not as good as in person, let's talk about AI a little bit. I was just kind of goofing around with it, and I asked it to create a picture of a 41-year-old commercial leasing agent of English heritage with 3 kids in Vancouver. So this was Copilot. We just started using Copilot, and there we go. A little bit of Ryan Reynolds, I think. Not a bad-looking dude. They got my kids right, girl, boy, girl. Then I asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said, can you give me more information? I'd like more information. I said, please just guess. A little bit more equal opportunity. I got a female, yeah. And they got the kids wrong. But my point is, it's not as good as the authentic. A little bit of gray, a little bit of spare tire. But I love seeing you all here today, and thanks for giving us a little bit of rope to try a different format. We're going to invite people up one by one and hopefully get into a little bit more of a detailed conversation about what those people actually do, rather than going down the line on generic questions. We're going to get into a bit of a market overview. This will guide a lot of our discussion. Tyler Bain, Scott Sutherland, I don't know if you're in the room, but thank you very much for all your help. Some of the best in the business. Quick trends in the market. So where are we downtown? 12.6% vacancy in Q3 25. That's up. 781,000 square feet of sublease space. That's up. 174 full floors of space. That's up. Here's where the story might start. AAA vacancy and A vacancy down 9.5%. B and C vacancy up 17.2%. What are some of the trends on the inducement side? Extended fixturing and delayed occupancies, higher TI allowances. I would say not every deal is getting this. I think everyone would agree in the room. You know this is a broker deck because they put the fees in there at $2 a foot. And we're seeing a lot of spec spaces. So let's go into some of the numbers. Regional vacancies. You see the green line on the bottom, that's downtown. Downtown has typically been a tighter market than the suburban market, trending all the way back to 2007 when the chart starts. COVID came, those lines flipped. Then we saw a trend back. It just got to par. And then, boom, a couple of changes. Telus Garden came online. 510 Hastings came online. Tom Lee Building came online. So it diverged a little bit. We'll see where it goes. We'll see what our panel thinks about that. A bifurcated market, again, pretty tight. Vancouver, bit of a, we're still kind of a fishing village and lumber town to an extent. But everything was running pretty tight until the pandemic. And then all of a sudden you see this big gap start to form. Today we're at 770 basis points difference in vacancy. And that trend looks like it's escalating. We'll see where that's going. Net rents, 45% difference between AAA and A and B and C. Where's that going to go? Full floors, we talked about this. Tyler was trying to explain this to me. Essentially, we're a little bit ahead than we were in 2023. This peaked in 2023, and we've been chipping away at it since. Some of that's been taking full floors out of stock, turning into show suites. We've done that at Guinness Tower very successfully. Some of that's been just some chip away leasing. Market availability. Here you can see where the market is vacant. Different people are playing in different spots. I know we're kind of playing in that A, AAA, under 5,000 quite a bit and having really good success, specifically in the show suites. Still 8 options over 50,000 feet in the market, but a pretty good dispersion of offerings there. The latest pipeline. So we're 94% leased on the latest build cycle. The red boxes, those spaces either have deals on them or are going to be show suited. Right, Peter? Where's Peter Jenkins? Over here. You're going to show suite those floors? One at a time. Okay. Well, you'll have good success. And so we're going to see 7 floors taken out of there. We've got a show suite going in the stack. We think that's going to get leased pretty quick. So the market's starting to feel really good about improved space, and especially the new AAA. What about the next wave of buildings? 2031 at the earliest. How is this going to impact our market? Are any of these actually going to be built by 2031? We'll get into that with the panel in a little bit. Supply and demand. So it's an interesting stat I've started to see is this 25-year average. 255,000 square feet on a 25-year average. This is a market call. We're going to look at this in 3 years and say nobody was right or everyone was right. But if we keep on the kind of 25-year average, we'll be down under 10% downtown by 2027. A bit of a reach, aspirational, but add the 2015 to 2019 average absorption, we'll be down at 6%. Who knows? H-1B visas changing the U.S. That was a big boom for Vancouver when that happened last time during Trump's presidency. We'll see. But Vancouver's still kicking butt. by downtowns, Canadian cities holding their own. Vancouver's the lowest vacancy. You can see the other Canadian cities in dark. I think everyone feels pretty good about this. Now, you could say, yeah, but the American downtowns aren't the same as our downtowns. Well, Manhattan is, and they just saw the most amount of people back since COVID. So we'll see where this is trending. Historical sublease, ripped up at the start of COVID, normalized since then at 18.3% of vacancy today. I'll talk to Al a little bit about what he thinks there. Vacancy rates remain above the 2015 new supply peak. What I took away from this was, this is a cyclical, like everyone's talking about how this is structural. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's cyclical. We've seen these disruptions before where vacancy will come into our market and peak and then go down. And maybe this is some of the reason. We're seeing governments and banks initiate corporate Canada's return to office. Provincial government in Ontario, 5 days a week. A lot of the banks, similar schedules. What does this mean? Will our government follow suit? Who knows? I want to talk to Robin a little bit about how companies are calling people back and how that's working. And lots of news in the market. KingSett just picked up a couple office buildings. We bought a 50% share of 4 of our office buildings in Vancouver and 3 in Calgary. Lululemon just committed 300,000 square feet in at the former Nordstrom building. Lots of good stuff happening. So, with that, let's get into our panel. I'd like to first invite up, he is the Vice President of High Technology Facilities Group at CBRE. Everyone please welcome Alain Rivera.
Thank you. Thanks, Ted. Lovely spin. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm glad my jacket doesn't match the couch too closely. That would have been sort of green screening.
All right, how's this mic? This mic's working okay? There we go. All right, Al. So, I did want to start talking about how we first met, which was kind of a funny story. And I don't know if you remember it, and I tried to go through the security footage, but we deleted it. And my first interaction with Alain Rivera was actually banning him from Oxford's building for 18 months until CBRE became a tenant at 1021 West Hastings. And the story there is you were with a different team at the time, and I think you were getting some different training.
The team I was in was research, 2 months or 3 months on the job, doing building walks, which a lot of us have probably done, and going to building. It's like the second building I've done, and walking and going and looking around. Security gets in the elevator. Okay, cool. Get off, and then he follows me. So I get back on, like, oh, wrong floor. And he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm just actually leaving the building. And he brought me down, made me sign some papers. I'm sweating. And then I get a note from, I think, Mark Renzoni, like, what happened today? Like, come see me. And I'm like, oh, God, am I getting fired?
The story we got was that he was pulling the move where he barges past reception to go and try and get to the decision maker.
Also true, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about you, just so the crowd knows, before you got into real estate. You were working in the super yacht industry. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that's right. I took some time to travel and explore the world and other careers for a minute. And I did end up working on super yachts. And I guess what I learned was I don't want to be working on them. I want to be chartering them. But what I really took away and I brought with me, I think, to the commercial real estate business is the importance of clear communication, especially on those boats with the walkie-talkies, not cutting any corners, and dealing with high-profile people and clients. I actually had the privilege of working on Steven Spielberg's yacht. I used to call him Spiely. And he had a lot of high-profile guests, so just being in and around those people, I think, helped me early days feeling confident and relaxed around high-profile clients. So,
if you didn't fold the towels right, Mrs. Spielberg was on you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Towels had to be a certain way.
So, we just went through CBRE's market overview. Lot to cover in there. What is your headline statement on the market today?
Great question. I think Vancouver, there's a lot going on in the office market here. There's a lot to talk about, especially when you look globally, North America. But for Vancouver, the way I'd phrase it right now, it's a dynamic market, but also very nuanced. So it's dynamic in the sense that we're seeing great transaction happen. Lululemon, Connor Clark Lund, and many others, very positive. On the flip side, you're seeing a lot of space come back, and vacancy has ticked up, which shows you there's things pulling and going in both directions, and it's nuanced where really when you look at the asset class, the location, the quality, and the tenant sizes, and different sectors as well, there's a tremendous amount of difference. Financial services is much more active than the tech sector is today, but that may change. And also in talking to actually recruiters, I find, which is a RTO trend, so return to office, it's 2021 after post-COVID, it became a strong employee market. Employees were driving the bus and decision makers didn't want to, they wanted to hire, and so they were hiring anyone and everyone they could. And that has shifted. I think we all agreed, would say it has trended towards back to return office, more days in the office, and that's a helpful trend for the office market. But it's becoming more of an employer's market. They have more say, and they're starting to flex that gently, but that's definitely increasing and having a positive impact.
So one thing that the CBRE slides didn't have, and it was shared with me from another brokerage, not ready for publication, but it was a demand slide. And this brokerage said demand's actually been declining over the last 6 quarters. Days on market's increasing. What are you seeing for new demand to our market? And what are you seeing for the young tech companies that I used to see weekly at our portfolio? Where's that segment of the market right now?
So good question. The demand side is the nuance side. Decision makers, I think, all across the board are having there's a lot of uncertainty in their business, and they're weary to make fast decisions. I think one of the big trends is deals are taking longer than they've ever. So tough to make decisions. They don't want to spend money on building space, so CapEx is a big concern. And they're really looking also at their employees while they're driving the bus return to office. They really do want that office to be used, and so they're really taking stock and asking and making sure that that's a smart decision. When it comes to sector types, financial services is really one of the key drivers, and as you mentioned, the tech sector is, which I focus on a lot and have a lot of clients there. They're not what they were, particularly pre-COVID and just post. The startup sector is a lot quieter and slower, and if they're in the market, they're looking for short-term leases, and I would say for the most part, and more of a deal. So the sublease market, more value plays, move-in ready.
Okay. Now, it could be a correlation between where the economy's headed. It hasn't been a great last couple of quarters. Some people think we're in a recession. We've got some planned projects coming. There's probably a fiscal bazooka coming in when the budget comes out. Some people are saying it's going to be a $100 billion deficit. So we could start to see some engineering and those types of users back. We're going to talk a little bit about H-1B visas when we get the whole panel up here. Tell me about show suites. So when's the last time you had a tenant under 5,000 square feet say, I want to run the entire design procurement process and build process myself? Or is that gone?
That's gone. Well, it happens, but very rarely, I would say at this point. Unequivocally, and I've, anecdotal as well from clients, even just as much as last week. We send them a survey. They're looking for, like you said, under 5,000 square feet, and that's really that cohort of tenants. They don't want to spend CapEx. They also, clients are telling me directly after we look at the list of options, saying, I don't want a project at all. And they're very capable people, and they're telling me this. They're saying, I don't have the bandwidth to think about picking and selecting carpets and finishes, even though it's quite easy and sure it could be only a few minutes at a time here and there. I don't want to do it. Don't even talk to me about it. And then you go and tour a space that they can move in, and at most it might be, change one item or two, but it has to be easy and ready for them to say yes. And so I think from a landlord perspective, if you're wondering how do I lease more space, I think it's getting it to that finished modern look and feel that makes it easy. And it doesn't always have to be, I think, all your units, but having true good quality spec suites that you can show. And this one's if it's under construction, people are leasing it, and you've seen evidence of that. Kingset's seen evidence of that. Manulife, Kingset's going to roll that program out with Luke, Tara, and the team at the new 700 and 750 West Pender, and basically I think all vacancies that they have currently. So they know the movie, it's working, and tenants are really responding to that. So I think that movie will really continue for us here in Vancouver, and that's the same movie I think we're seeing in other markets like Toronto too.
What's interesting, time, rolls on, in that 2015 cycle of buildings, none of those suites would have been prepped. None of them would have been show suites, ready, set, goes in a new AAA building. Now we got Oxford doing a 5,000 foot unit in the stack. We got Peter doing full floor. PCI's done a tremendous job at 601 West Hastings, leasing up a lot of that building from show suites. So it's interesting to see how, there is a lot more work going into leasing space, and not just B and C space, but AAA brand new space.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting part, which we'll see, is, as you mentioned, Peter is doing it on larger floors. There aren't that many large floors that are doing it. It's the smaller tenants who you can do a little bit more guesswork on what they're going to want and what they're going to say yes to. But long term, I think those spaces and those landlords who are being proactive are going to get ahead. They're getting good tenants, they're getting good rates, and it's offsetting some of that cost. And I think the big consideration for people in the room too, if you're on the landlord side, is what does days on market cost you, right? What's another 12 months? And so the turnkey is really binary. If it's finished and it's there, it's leased within, I'd say, a few months, just about. And if it's old, it could be 12, 18 months or more. I mean, you're basically going to, as far as today goes and where we're headed, I think that's the difference.
Or you're going to capitulate later and just build it out later.
You're just going to do it later, so why not do it sooner?
Okay, so let's talk about one of the deals you just did. You represented Hive, right, at Nelson and
980 Howe.
980 Howe, there you go. I was blanking on that. Tell us about that deal. That's a homegrown tech company. What are tenants like that saying when you get into the boardroom the first time?
The first time in the boardroom with Hive was, they're, I would say, younger type of exec team, but very, very passionate, very, fun but serious about their business and their company. One of the first few things the CEO told me was, we're not a Vancouver startup building in Vancouver. We're a San Francisco style startup building in Vancouver, and what he means by that is we're big and we're going big, and we're hiring the best, and we're going to build the best, and they pay great salaries. They have hired great people, and you go in that office today, it's buzzing, and it actually stems from leadership down, and so I think there's the startup community in Vancouver is mixed with a lot of it's a different vibe, and that CEO also comes from Toronto, so. Yeah, I guess to answer you, to get back to your question of the first conversations, they care deeply about their employees and the quality experience and their brand and their culture and the output, and so they wanted their space to really reflect that. So we toured, I'd say, almost all the new builds. We toured many AAA A buildings. I think we probably went on 3 or 4 different tours of 4 or 5 buildings each time over the years, and they landed on 980 Howe. Because it was the short-term finished space that they were looking for, and looking further out, they could grow into it, which all came together at the start of this year.
So in terms of return to office, was that an example of a tenant that was remote first and is trying to bring everyone back, or what were they doing?
Yeah. So I'd say the tech companies are the laggers when it comes to return to office. Many are still hybrid, or we have an office, no one's in it, we're not sure if we're going to renew in 2 years. But these guys were always in office, and that was sort of upfront with their employees and their staff they're hiring, was we're in office first, culture. Again, the CEO came from Toronto. The other thing that was apparent was, he had 4 or 5 different people in the room giving decisions, putting their input, but he was the one making the call at the end of the day. And so I think having that sort of structure enabled them to really get feedback, but then make decisions as well, which in today's market in general, I'm finding there's a lot of, I need to get board approval, and I need to kind of get many, many layers of approvals, and it's slowing processes down.
To me, in us talking about this deal beforehand, it's exactly what Vancouver needs. It needs another example of a homegrown tech company that can scale here and be successful in Vancouver. And I think people can. Are you seeing that? Or are tech founders saying, I can build this business in Vancouver?
We have the talent. Yeah, the tech sector here is strong relative in Canada, relative to the U.S. We don't have a big pool, but we have very high caliber people and talent. So I think we're going to continue to see some great companies come here. The issue right now with the tech sector is the funding. The VC money has completely dried up. In 2024, I think the number of VC deals was absolutely awful. It was something like 23 or 24 funding rounds, and it was $220 million, which is abysmal. This year, the first half, it's slightly higher. 230 million in that range, same number of deals. So it's improving, and I think we're going to start to see that get better because the U.S., Seattle, L.A., San Francisco, the tech sector's back. Money's pouring into that area. It's all generally AI-oriented companies. In our tech sector, we have a very strong pool of AI talent, and we actually have the most concentration relative to the size of the tech sector of AI-based related companies in Canada. So we're well positioned there, and I think if you're a landlord and there's an AI company sniffing around, I think it might not be good to kind of roll the dice, get them in early, and hopefully they can grow.
Great. So you mentioned some other markets a little bit there. What are you hearing from your counterparts in the LAs and the New Yorks? What are you hearing that they're doing great, or where are they experiencing wins or losses?
Yeah. I think for Vancouver, we need to understand where we're headed, take the blinders off a little bit and look outside of our market. New York, when speaking to some of our fellow brokers out there and colleagues, the Manhattan market is on fire right now. They're actually on track. 2024, they were getting near 2019 leasing volumes. This year, they're on track to exceed it by a good margin, and that's looking like 40 million square feet of transactions, which relative to Vancouver, 28 million square foot market here downtown. So 40 million's a pretty good chunk. In comparison, the Manhattan market's 410 million square feet. So we're looking at about 10%. Compare that to Vancouver, 28 million square feet total. We've actually transacted on leasing volumes 22.4 million square feet. So we can give ourselves a pat on the back. I think, we're looking at where things are, looking at our market being one of the lowest vacancies in North America, we're doing pretty good. So I think everyone should be pretty proud of where we're at right now. Also interesting, they've seen a tremendous amount of activity actually in the new build as well, and the AAA class, which we all know that flight to quality trend. But their average rent's somewhere around just under $80 a foot net. The new buildings are fetching $200 to $250 and near $300 a foot.
Yeah. In New York.
In New York, correct. Yeah, not here.
Yeah. So we're going to move on quickly, but I just have 2 last questions. What's the strata market doing? Off the strata.
The strata market is unfortunately very quiet. Interest rates are getting better, so we hope to see more activity there. There's a number of projects getting listed, and I think it's going to take some time to get to the point where people are ready to make decisions. But yeah.
You did a deal in Boza Waterfront, second generation purchase. That price per foot was
just over $1,600 a foot,
and the first buyer would have bought that
in the low 2000s.
So obviously that they marketed that building right at the right time, but you're seeing a little bit of downside
knocked it out of
on
the
the
park
high
with
end.
that, and we'll start to see some retrades, I think, now. But flight to quality and long-term vision is where the activity is. Investors just looking to take advantage of strata is not that part of the market's pretty quiet.
Great. Last question. Sublet. You get a client that calls you, say, "Hey, Al, I need to put my space on the market." What's your advice to them?
Well, first we need to see the space, Ted. that again, fit and finish, quality of furniture and layout is all critical, important. Views, all of those things. So it's going to take time. No deal's fast.
Recovery percentage? Say everything's pretty good?
It's hard to say. If everything's pretty good, it should be in the 80% range.
Okay, perfect. I did forget one slide. It went with the story I was telling off the front. I tried to get a picture of you in jail, but Copilot wouldn't let me do it. So orange sweatshirt, thinking about what you did after you walked through our buildings. So there you go.
I think
that's you in detention.
Ted actually printed the picture of me from the camera and sent it to me with like your signature. So when I clean my desk out one day, I'll find it.
All right. Thank you very much, Al. You're just going to move down. Next, from Aura, I'd like to welcome Robin Roseborough. She is the Director of Workplace Strategy. Come on up, Robin. Sofa's too big? Yeah, a little wobbly too. Hopefully it stays up. Kevin Hart over here. All right. So, Robin worked at Steelcase before. We dealt with each other a little bit there. Now you're Director of Workplace Strategy. Tell us what that means at Aura.
So at Aura, it allows us to get in front of clients a little earlier in the process. So we're having conversations with clients so that they can actually understand how that next space is going to meet their business goals. It is bringing together teams that may not have had a chance to talk yet. So the real estate, the people teams, the IT teams, and getting them to a place of alignment. And we do that through workshops, we do that through observation studies, through assessments. And all of that is to help them understand how we can approach a space that will remove a bit of that uncertainty for the future, creating different scenarios so there's a bit more flexibility.
Okay, and what gives you the expertise to do that? Tell us a little bit about your education. I saw your GPA on your LinkedIn, 3.97, not bad.
I'm going to remove that. So when I was working at Steelcase, I was working with a lot of interior design firms here in Vancouver. Some of them are here today. It's so lovely to see them. And when 2020 happened, everybody was asking, what now? And I loved the big sticky questions. My favorite thing is when somebody asks me something that I don't actually know the answer to, because it's an opportunity to dive into the research. So I dove in and I started looking at the history of knowledge working. So we've been studying that since the 1950s. We've been studying telework since it became a word in 1974. It's not new. A lot of the things that we're experiencing today are not new. It's just at a greater scale, and it's been accelerated. So doing all this research for my design firms, I was like, you know what, I might as well be getting credit for this. So I chose to go back to school, and I did my master's in organizational psychology. So
she's being very humble. She went to Harvard and got a master's. So, yeah, there we go. Let's give that an applause. Okay, so you get introduced to the client. Someone brings them in, and you're going for that first meeting. What are the first set of questions you're asking, or are you just listening to the client as you go in?
Definitely listening. There's a lot of listening. But I think one of the first questions I like to ask clients is, how are you currently measuring the success of your office? And often people will say things like utilization rates or occupancy, square footage per person, all these sorts of metrics that we're used to hearing. But those metrics don't necessarily impact their business goals. So we're trying to get them to go further than that and look at success measures that are actually going to impact their business. And we have an assessment, the Measuring Impact Assessment, where we do look at some of those, and even through one of the workshops that we do with executive leaders, that leads to KPIs for their space. So that way we're actually looking at how their space is going to drive their business forward and bring a return on investment.
So one of those metrics that I'm always thinking about is productivity, because you're seeing it from so many different perspectives. You see someone say on LinkedIn, I'm so much more productive at home, and that's the the worker's view, and then you see studies talking about the company's productivity and where that might be best achieved. What's the science saying today around productivity? Is it...
I love that you brought this up.
Okay.
Just because I think that there needs to be a huge shift in how we're thinking about productivity. It's a very individual metric. We've been at home for so long, and when we're sitting at home and we're thinking about productivity, it's to do with our to-do list. It's a task-based individual productivity versus when you're in the office and you're being distracted by a colleague asking you a question, you may not get as much done in your to-do list, or you may spend a little bit more time at the coffee machine talking about your hobbies with a colleague. Those lead to team and business performance. It is sharing knowledge. It leads to generating new knowledge, which is the basis of innovation. It is building social capital, which leads to trust, which again leads to more innovation. Those things that we consider distracting, those things that pull us away from that individual productivity, actually lead to greater team and organizational performance. So we need to reframe away from that. And then the second piece of that is if you actually look at the research around productivity and how it's greater at home, most of the studies, who here follows Nick Bloom on LinkedIn or any of his studies? I see a few hands. So he's out of Stanford, and he's like the original work from home, increase of productivity guy, decades before the pandemic. And a lot of this research, even now, in 2025, we're still looking at research from call centers. And when you look at these call centers and the difference of their environment in the office, it's a windowless room. Each individual has a very small desk. You're cramped with everybody around you. And then their home environment, sure, they may be sitting at their dining room table, but there's windows and there's nobody around them talking, fighting to hear over everybody else. So their productivity, which is simply a measure of calls per hour, is actually higher. And this is generally because productivity is harder to measure in other fields. And the 2025 research that I'm referencing out of the U.S. Bureau of Economic Research actually does show that when you look at something that is more complex, like equity analysts, they were more productive in the office. Not only were they more productive, but they had more accurate forecasts.
So are you helping reframe that discussion with your clients, and what design trends are you seeing that are helping foster that?
Definitely, and that goes back to like one of the questions I ask is, what kind of training is happening with the employees to help them understand the benefits of the different places that they work? Because I think training and helping them understand the impact of not just the home environment or the shared working environment, but also the different environments within an office, those different space typologies. And in answering that previous part, I forgot the rest of your question.
What
the trends.
What trends are happening, yeah.
Quiet places. We all know this, because that is the number one reason people say that they want to work from home, is it's quieter, there's less distractions. Although, like, in the near post-pandemic period, we were seeing, the office is just going to be a clubhouse. It was all about bringing people back together. It was about collaboration, all these sorts of things. It still is. It still is about that social capital. But we don't do that all day long. We need that personal space so we can prepare for that collaborative meeting, so we can retreat afterwards and actually absorb some of the information that we just learned from working with our colleagues, allow it to mingle with ideas we already have in our head. Again, another place where generating new knowledge and innovation comes from, but also to recharge. So a lot of times we look at a work day, and if I walk through an office and there isn't a space to recharge, it's not surprising when that's something that shows up in surveys from employees, that it's not a welcome experience. So when I look through an office, it's easy to see what is perceived as allowed, which in architecture speak is like the affordances of space. So if I see a recharge space, then that is telling the employees that they're allowed to take a break. They're allowed to go chill out. They're allowed to meditate. They're allowed to just go scroll on Instagram or TikTok or whatever they want. So seeing an increase of those private spaces is important. It doesn't need to be phone booths. It could be a library space. It could just be an environment which has a bit more calmer lighting. the social norm that you don't speak in the space, you don't interrupt people when they're in there. Some offices have done this even with, they'll have an entire open space, and most of the desks will be white, and then there'll be the odd black desk. And the black desk means if I'm sitting here, don't bother me. I'm trying to like focus and do heads down work. But you can create an entire different environment for that too. Some other things that we're seeing is just the evolution of meeting rooms, not just for hybrid. We saw that shift, but also going back to being more analog. We know that that's where a lot of that creativity comes from. I had a great question again from one of the design firms I was working with previously when I was at Steelcase, and they were like, how does working in the virtual environment change versus analog? So think about whiteboards versus Miro or Mural or something like that. We have evolved as spatial creatures. Our spatial memory in our brains is incredible. It's like when you read a book and you're like, oh, I can't remember that thing, but I remember it's like on the bottom left-hand corner. We can remember that sort of stuff. The same goes when you're looking at a whiteboard, and when you're in the virtual environment, you're not connecting to a location. So there's a way that we learn better and we process information differently when there's a spatial arrangement and that there isn't that consistency in virtual. So creating meeting spaces that have that analog.
And are you measuring the success with your clients in terms of retention and productivity after you've helped them build out some space?
That will be eventually the goal. I have been with Aura for a year and a bit.
Okay.
So because we're so early on in the process when we're doing workplace strategy, it then has to go through that whole project. So that assessment that I spoke of, that is the goal that we then measure it again afterwards and help them continue that process of improvement.
Elaine, you were going to say something?
I was just going to point out there, comment or ask, you mentioned how the physical paper, talking, writing versus virtual is creates more memory and connectivity, but I suppose the same is to talking and dealing with people, right? Versus a Zoom, I feel like I don't retain and I don't take away quite as much. You don't get the nuances.
And you're exhausted after.
Physical, then when you're with somebody in person, you learn so much more, just the way that their body language and everything else, right?
It really is. We actually did a webinar, Your Brain and Virtual Work. And there's a lot of different things in neurology that are happening when we're here in person. Even if you think about the difference of when I'm working at home, I will work at my dining room table. And I think it was 2016, the Nobel Prize was given for the discovery of our location grid neurons. Essentially, neurons in our brain that are like GPS. So when you're at a physical location on Earth, it connects memories to that location. It's like when you go back to your hometown and you have this flood of memories of things that happened when you were there. Same thing happens even in a small piece of space. So one of the theories why we have greater burnout when working from home is actually because our GPS neurons are putting those memories and that identity. So I'm a mom when I'm at the dining room table. I'm a tutor. I'm helping with homework. I'm a spouse, I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, all these different sorts of things. Those are my identities at home. So when I have to put on my professional hat at that same table, there is this cognitive dissonance that is happening that puts greater stress on our brains. So that's one of the reasons, but also there's a brain synchronicity that happens when we're in person. So like we'll have the same skin conductance, which means like moisture and stuff like that. The brain waves will be the same. Our heart rates will end up being the same, which improves empathy. So that's why empathy and trust is greater in person, because there's all these physiological things that are happening in person that don't happen through a screen.
I'm learning a lot. This is great.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Robin. That was great. We're going to welcome up now. Let's just give Robin a round of applause. Thank you. He is the Vice President of Western Canada for Canderel, former Colliers alumni, and nightclub accessory promoter. Please welcome Bryce Margetts.
Hello. Nightclub accessory promoter. I think you're getting me confused with Dak. That was not me.
Let's lead with that. Your little oxygen business. Tell us about that. That's an interesting little tidbit.
First of all, I want to apologize for the gross misrepresentation of my photo up there. That shows you the last time I got invited to speak on a panel. What did you ask, sorry?
I'm always intrigued by the story about why you left Colliers. Because you're a deal guy, right? Like you were in.
Okay, well, this is a long story, so I'll keep it quick. So, after my commercial mortgage brokerage career of 4 years, I went to Colliers in the investment division. I think I have a plaque at home saying second best rookie in North America. And then I got distracted by a shiny object in Melbourne. And the lesson is don't get distracted by shiny objects, stay the course. If I had, I would be like Colin and Kayvon today, and maybe I'd have a house in LA and hang out with Justin Bieber and dating 20-year-olds. So, not that I want to do that, but anyway, so I basically raised $1 million for an air company. I became the CEO of an air company, believe it or not. It's a long story. And the misnomer is I never left Colliers. And KK is, I think, in the room here. He's not going to like this that I say this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. It set a bad precedent, but I rented a warehouse near Granville Island off Arnold Silber. He let me lease one of his spaces. That's another story. And I then raised a whole bunch of money out of New York from an investment bank and traveled around the world for 3 weeks out of the month for 4 or 5 years. And then Lehman Brothers went down in 2007, and they stopped funding for most of the companies they were working with, including me. And that got all wrapped up. But I had my Colliers phone in my warehouse, and I had my Oxia phone in my warehouse. And KK said, as long as you're not in the office, you can stay at Colliers. So I did both.
There we go. Nice work, KK. Okay, so anything that the previous guest brought up that you want to address before we get going?
No.
Okay, that's easy.
We'll move on.
We'll move on. So, Canderel, back in the management game in Vancouver, previously managed Bentall Center when you were working with Anbang for a number of years. Now you're back managing 401 West Georgia and 402 Dunsmuir. What's changed in that time frame? What have you noticed as a difference?
Well, back then, I mean, when Anbang bought Bentall Center around 2017, we were just, coming into a very strong market. You guys were leading in in what you did below the Marine Building and M&P in terms of the best-in-class amenities.
Yep.
And Dave Hogg and I think did like over 101 deals. We were very, very active. We brought WeWork to Vancouver. I cold called them out of Boston and asked them if they'd come up here. They were a total pain in the ass to deal with, but we landed that first deal. And, rates back then were Bentall for mid to high 30s. I think what's then and now, and we were just also coming off a development cycle. And, initially losing some deals to the new buildings, but that tightened up and the market got incredibly strong. Today in Bentall 4, there's a deal going on right now in sort of the mid-40s. We didn't have the price escalation that we did back then on sort of dollar per foot and growth in rents. I don't see rents going down from here. We're about $10 higher. 2019 hit. Obviously, the market slowed, picked back up in 2022. And then 23 and 24 have obviously been very soft. And I think, the similarities is we're at the end of this development cycle now. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about what is happening in Canada. For me, it's all about replacement cost. And I think we're going to see the market start to tighten from here.
Okay. Tell me about spec suites. Is that something you were doing before, and are you doing them now?
100%. 401, we're doing 3 spec suites, 4, 5, 7,000 feet. If you don't do them, you're not going to lease anything.
Okay. Amenities, same thing, same outlook?
100%, hospitality type amenities, scents in the lobbies. At 401, we're doing a $2.5 million tenant lounge, completely redoing the gym. We're bringing in, the highest line of techno something equipment.
Yeah. Sounds like you're pretty familiar with the gym.
Oh, yeah. I'm old now, Tim.
Hey, glass houses.
No, the amenities are like table stakes now. So we're spending $5 million on 401 West Georgia. We just did what you started, put a patio at Aquafarina. It's a big success. So there's not much to do there, but we're doing it.
Al, would you agree? Are amenities? Are you touring buildings without amenities, or is that you need to go?
Yeah, we're touring building with amenities. There's a big difference, I would say, between the top tier best amenities versus the limited to no. And I was going to ask you, Bryce, if you're spending that kind of money on your tenant lounge, how big is it, and what in there is like unique that you're doing? Like what sort of?
I'm bringing in the top brewer coffee machine just for my tours with
yeah.
leasing brokers. You know what that is?
No.
Anyway, I saw it at the CBRE office in San Francisco. It's quite special. What are we doing? I mean, we're doing tenant lounges, we're doing co-working libraries, we're doing separate meeting room spaces where you can divide the space so two tenants can use it at once.
So the lounge isn't just social; it's for extra workspace for
Yep,
tenants.
extra workspace. You know, the standard stuff. Car wash and parcel service and discounts on liquor and partnerships with gym and partnerships with retailers.
One of the great things about, Robin, I want to get your thoughts on this. One of the great things about kind of the softening of our market is the amount of, we have to compete now, right? Every landlord has to compete, innovate. For a while there, you didn't really have to do much, and you just put up a for lease sign and get it done. Now we are being super creative as a group of landlords to try and figure out that next amenity. Are you seeing that kind of translate into the tenant spaces too, Robin?
Definitely, and also the amenities are one piece, and then the extra layer on that is how they're being activated. So that intentional activation of spaces through programming, and not just on the social side, but bringing people together for problem-solving, charrettes, hackathons of sorts, and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I was curious, is there programming, Bryce, in your buildings as well to bring people in?
We just did puppy yoga.
Nice.
Big success.
Did you do puppy yoga?
No, I didn't, but I heard about it. We're doing that.
And did you see an uptick on occupancy on that day?
I don't know, but probably.
Okay.
Ted, ideas of puppy yoga. I've heard of goat yoga as well. They kind of jump on your back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not there. One of my biggest accomplishments in life is not giving in to the urge to get a dog. So, so Bryce, you've got you handle business for Canderel across the country in the office group and on the investment side, and you represent a lot of foreign capital. Tell us about what that foreign capital is saying about the office market in Canada and office as an asset in Canada.
Well, so 401 West Georgia was interesting. It closed last year. I led the acquisition for DECA, working closely with Tony over at CB. The bid was very thin. We retraded that. Well, we retraded that during first and second bid by about $40 million and still got it. I'm involved in a large office transaction right now in the eastern part of the country. And it's interesting because I really, with all the back to work talk and, you know, it's the flight to quality. I like to say the flight to experience. I think I read that in a CB report. I love that saying. That's actually exactly what's happening. But I see us at the bottom here. There is, you know, I have an offer in Vancouver, no subjects, on a $60 million deal closing in 20 days on behalf of an investor. It's just a management contract. The bid-ask spread is not there, so we're not getting it. But this very large transaction that is in the east, the bid was still, to my surprise, quite thin. There was a bid from Singapore, U.S., 2 from Europe, and not very many from Canada that I knew of, but it was thin. It was thin, and to sum it all up, the attractiveness for Canada is we're not a 4-cap market anymore. DECA came in after owning Bentall 5. They did very well, but they wish they didn't sell that. They wanted to get back in the Vancouver market. You've seen all the stats. You know, we're a strong market. But we were a 4-cap, 4.5, and it was just too low. So that's why they bought Stantec Tower in Edmonton. That was a 5 3/4. That's probably a 7 or 8 now. But the cap rates are up. They are definitely up, well over 6. Toronto's 7. There's some major transactions going on in Toronto right now in the 7 range. So I think that's the appeal. You can get into a great market, steady at a higher cap rate.
And is the feeling that there's some upside in after, in the next couple of years?
I don't think so. I mean, it's just about income stability and steady, normal inflation.
Bryce,
but hang on, I'll just say on upside on this deal back east, similar to Vancouver, there is no supply entering that market. So when you talk about upside, there's more opportunity for it to tick up. This is like AAA stuff. A, AA, AAA. There's more opportunity for the rates to keep ticking up than it is to come down.
Okay, I like it. And across Canada, industry-wise, are you seeing what are you seeing flounder? What are you seeing flourish? You're in Alberta. You're in the East Coast. Are you seeing oil and gas, engineering, tech? Any commonalities or differences between markets?
I'll let Elaine answer that. It's all over the map.
It's all over the place.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning Toronto Financial Services, RTO, 4 days generally across the board. And there's a lot of demand happening right now from that sector, which probably the room's heard, but somewhere around 3 million square feet of demand in the AAA downtown financial core of Toronto from the big banks requirements up to, well, Scotia, I heard, put out an RFP 400 to 500,000. A few days later, pulls it, resubmits out to the market 800 to 900,000. And so they're all clamoring, and that's because they don't have enough space. That's net new. They don't have enough space for all their employees, and so that's what they're going. And I think that's having a ripple effect in the downtown core Toronto market, but the rest is still pretty high vacancy.
Okay. No, what do you got?
No, I'm just saying you're still seeing in the major markets, Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, a sideways movement. Positive absorption is starting, but the momentum is there.
6 steps forward, 5 back. That kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, we're going to get into some current events, some headlines now, and get the panel's opinion on a number of different things. Let's start with the most recent news. Trump's H-1B visa price hike is good for Canada. Do you agree, Bryce?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a tidal wave. I think it's going to be good for at the top. I mean, we're an expensive city. I think a lot of the labor will still stay off. But we have the proximity to the U.S. or close. I think it's definitely going to help.
Al, probably too early, but are the phones ringing saying I need some space for some?
Phones are ringing off the charts
because of
this. Yeah, no, just kidding. It's been a few days in it, and I think it's definitely people are talking about it. The tech sector's looking at it, talking about it. I don't think anyone's going to react too fast when we're dealing with Trump, and in 2 days he could change his mind again. I think it will probably stick to some degree. The cost, that $100,000 U.S. fee to get someone in, I think that may change, but regardless, it's probably going to stick around. He did it in his his earlier first term, and that's I think a big part of what spurred the tech expansion in our market.
So some optimism on the brokerage side. Robin, do you help people relocate? Are you ever part of that discussion with your clients?
Not necessarily at this stage, but even just over the weekend, he was already saying, this is negotiable. So it's just paying attention to it and seeing how it evolves over time.
Right. So lukewarm from the panel on...
The challenge I was going to add is with hoping and expecting U.S. firms to come to Canada as Trump is also so what's different than last time. He's buy American, hire American, and I think that's going to block or at least slow down some companies moving up here.
Well, if this becomes a bit of a wave that we can catch, hopefully we don't mess it up as across the country. So moving on. So in Victoria, the state of Victoria in Australia, there is remote work legislation being considered right now, where people who can would have the right to work from home 2 days a week. Robin, any science behind this that you can see?
It was interesting reading a bit about this because they're the state that actually brought in the 8-hour workday too. So there's a lot of unions there, and they are very progressive in how they look at their employees. Some of the research around it, they're talking about it allows more women to return to the workplace. A lot of the research around women returning to the workplace when there is work from home is, again, from other countries. Again, the U.S. references the study out of Turkey where work from home allowed more women to come into the workplace, but it is not the norm there that women work outside of the home in the first place. So we have to look at where a lot of the research is coming from. And just having 2 days working from home doesn't necessarily increase flexibility. Those workplaces could say it has to be on a Tuesday and Wednesday. So a lot of employees are seeking autonomy and flexibility, and they would actually prefer time flexibility over space flexibility. So being able to choose to come in earlier, leave earlier, or come in later and leave later, rather than being mandated certain days where they have to work. So it's being open to that as well.
One of the things we've seen, and Oxford is living by it, is instead of saying you get X days a week from home, they mandate which days you have to be there and which you can't. Like, so 4 days a week, you can work from home on Friday, but you have to be there Monday to Thursday. And I think that gets around a lot of the, I was there on Tuesday, but Jane wasn't type of stuff. So,
Yeah.
Bryce, any thoughts on this? Stay out of our HR policy.
Look, it's so dependent on the business. I'm a massive in favor of get back to the office. My team's back 5 days a week. It works. The young guys in my office love the mentorship, the creativity. But I have a senior development guy who lives in Tsawwassen, and he likes to spend a day or two at home, and he kills it when he's there. No problem.
No problem. Yeah, some flexibility is good.
Get back to the office. I think we're going to see a pendulum shift on this Teams and Zoom. It's soulless. It definitely provides a huge benefit. You have to do it, especially when you're in different geographies. But I'm a fan of being back in the office.
Al, any comments?
I agree with Bryce. I think in the office is where, for the most part, people do their best work. There's obvious, clear reasons and benefits to all of us to be able to be remote. But an example, I have a client who was going through their, a little bit of a restructure, and they were going in an exec meeting looking at what every employee does. It's about a 50-person company, and there was one person, no one in their exec team knew what they did, and they work remote. So, AKA reason to get people back so we know what they're doing and we can oversee.
All right. Next, okay. So between 2017 and 2022, we've seen a 3% rise in accommodation requests in Canada. This company, I found this really interesting, Absence Soft, they're a software company that manages leaves. They said in 2025, there's been a 21% increase in accommodation requests. I look at that and I say, this has to have some sort of correlation with
What do you mean accommodation requests?
Work from home. I can't come to the office because of X.
Because I'm lazy and I'm just shitting.
Right.
I don't know what the answer
Bryce.
is. But I have to think this is correlated somewhat to return to office mandates. Robin, my question to you is, are we just more welcoming as a society to kind of embrace people's differences? Or is this going to be a game of cat and mouse as return to office starts to take shape? Because I heard a story the other day about someone who's got an accommodation because of a family member who's sick. They can't be in crowds, and then they were found at a big festival, right? And it's like, so what is it? And so,
I think this is a design problem. Those accommodations are because the office isn't designed to fit all different types of people. It doesn't have those quiet places. It doesn't have places that have different lighting quality. Lighting is the number one thing people complain about after noise in an office space, and then temperature. So it's that environment. So just providing those different environments in the workplace, somewhere where they can go to recharge if somebody is getting migraines. So the number one reason for accommodations is mental health. And the number one accommodation request is remote work. So those are all fleeing bad design. And employers have to provide accommodations to an employee, but a lot of those could be accommodated in the workplace if it were designed well.
interesting.
One other point I think is location. I think the commute time is still and remains to be a huge issue. It was an issue, it still is, and it's that I think is to be the biggest problem for certain employers depending on their location, and that's what's also going to help certain buildings win and certain buildings not so much.
My belief is all roads lead to downtown. We've got a couple minutes left. So some big merger news, Anglo Tech, potential merger that may be happening. It would see the HQ of the new entity locate in Vancouver. There was a post online by someone in the room. They said, hey, as a thank you, executives, for moving to Vancouver, you get a 20% tax on buying a house. Are we screwing these things up? Do we sit here as Vancouver saying, we want more head offices, and all of a sudden when we get one, we put up a bunch of hurdles? What are your thoughts on this merger and HQ relocation? Bryce?
Well, look, we're Carney's screwing up so far a lot. He's not delivering on what he promised. I was with Jonathan, our chairman, yesterday, who's much closer to the political vibe, and as a co-chair of the Fraser Institute, he's expecting, as we are, a lot more. And the budget got pushed to November. Wish it didn't, but we're expecting big things. And we have $1 billion project in Toronto, residential. I think we've sold 4 units this year. So the problem here is you're a foreigner, the foreign buyer's tax. That's one of 8 things that he needs to do to kickstart our economy.
Okay. Elaine,
crossing our fingers.
When you're talking to people looking to come to this market, are they bringing up the hurdles we put in place? High taxes, relocation costs?
Not very much. I think right now it's mostly hiring local.
Okay.
So I guess in that way maybe it's helping, but a lot less foreign companies, I'd say, in the market. And in fact, I think BC is sort of a net loser to Alberta. There's a lot more not a lot, but more. But there's more happening, more value there for people and entrepreneurs.
I think BC's population went down last year by 2,500 people. Sorry, you're going to say something? No? Okay. Next. So 2 more slides. Good job, Lou. Lululemon moves into Nordstrom. What I find really interesting about that and the 2015 wave of buildings is every single one of those buildings has seen a material change in their tenancy. So MNP left 1021 West Hastings. SNC Lavalin and Amazon left 745 Thurlow. They've backfilled that. You go down the list. Should we expect this for this latest round of building, or is this just, Robin, is this because workplace design has changed so much during COVID? Telus Gardens, half empty.
If you want.
Go for it. You start.
Look, in 2015, we were in an extremely tight market, and these companies didn't have the choice. So I think it's just a matter of consolidation.
Making, correcting decisions
and
that were
correcting.
made in a rushed
M&P, small floor plate, that's why M&P moved out. There's some other factors, but it's mainly a consolidation thing, I think.
Consolidation, and I think I read something the other day that said the most expensive office is not the one that you're creating and designing, but it's actually the one that is underperforming. So it's looking at the space that you're in and seeing, is it allowing your business to succeed in the way that it needs to, and does it make more sense to go to a new location where you can create that new space?
Elaine, any comments?
I would just say, tenants are right-sizing, they're adjusting, and I think it's, to one of my first comments, the market's nuanced. There's a reason and a story behind each action
and every one of
tenants
those deals
are making,
Okay. Last slide. This is the next pipeline. Does anyone believe any of these are going to get built by 2031? Bryce?
I would have said pre-interest rate rise that Hudson and Blackstone were the next to go, but the nuance is that's a one title, a Bentall Center, and so you're $1.1 billion purchase price. You put another 500,000 feet, and now you're $1.5 billion on a secondary market. I don't think you have the liquidity. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles to that. I could be wrong, but I don't really like the locations of a lot of these. I'm an investor in one of them, and I lost, I think, all my money. I think the next one to go is Reliance Hines. They're smart guys, very well capitalized. Floor plate's small, though, so I don't know how they're going to get a pre-leasing tenant, and I think they'd be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs if they went spec on it. I don't think they're going to do that. So the next building, there's a 400,000 foot tenant in the market right now. Tried to kick off a build-to-suit, and the underwriting on it needed 70 going up $1 a foot. And even at that, with where the cap rates are, you're a 10% profit, so the deal got shelved. So I don't see anything going in that I can picture. But if I had to pick one, it would be 1066.
Glenn?
I think 1066 is definitely on the list. I also think Cadillac's building on the waterfront. Location views are going to be tremendous there if and when they build it. I think it's an interesting moment where things are starting to improve. We're starting to see a lot of action out of the East Coast, the big centers, return to office. And I think that trend's coming. It's not here yet, so we have a lot to churn through. Our AAA vacancy is better than B and C, but we have a lot of stock. There's actually more stock in that bucket. So I think if someone were, had the confidence to do it. I think they should, or start sooner than later, because it's going to take 5 years to build.
Robin?
I don't know the buildings, but I'll say the one that has the amenities and the programming that'll actually entice the workers with an experience that makes them want to be there.
My money's on Royal Center PCI, just a smaller expansion. Small, I know it's small. If I had to pick something else, I would say Reliance Hines. So, last bit. I just asked you all to have a shout out for somebody. Al, let's go. We're going to wrap up on this, saying some good things. I made a commitment during COVID to say the nice things out loud. Here you go. Let's go.
I would say Jason Kisselback, our managing director, who's
Oh,
a friend.
you
There we go.
I was about to do something I shouldn't have done, but that's a real suck up.
It is. He's also my neighbor, and he was helpful in early part of my career when I was trying to get out of jail. So
There you go. Robin?
I'm going to go Mike Fruin, who's now at Heritage, was at Steelcase, and brought me into this world of workplace.
There you go. Nice. Bryce?
I'm going to say, and I'm going to have a shameful plug after this.
Okay.
So I'm shouting out to all the engineers who start our buildings, keep them going, change the filters, keep the temperature good. So Miguel Flores is our chief engineer.
Nice.
Great guy. He's also DJ Miguel. And at 12 o'clock today, we are doing launching ourselves off 401 West Georgia in an effort to raise money for BC Cancer. DJ Miguel will be there. He's DJing. It's free to all the office leasing brokers. We're going to have Aperol spritzes, mimosas, Caesars, mini pastas, mini pizzas. So come by. At 12 noon, Daryl Simpson and I are launching ourselves off of the building in costume to, I think, a White Snake song, maybe Bon Jovi, I forget. He picked it. Followed by Daryl Hurst and Matt McLean right behind us. And I think BMAC's doing it, and there's lots more. So if you want to come by, 11 to 2 at 401 West Georgia today.
Okay.
You're invited.
Thank you. We'll see if I can make it.
We'll see you there, and DJ Miguel's giving autographs.
All right. Awesome. Mine, my shout out, Brad MacArthur. We started working at NAIOP 8 years ago on the golf tournament. We learned the lesson that if you complain about something, you may be volunteered to fix it. And here we are 8 years later. So, Brad, it's been a pleasure working with you. That's it. Thanks so much for accommodating us in this new format. See everyone later.